As usual. And as usual, we're going to have a wonderful show. We're going to talk about everything that's happened last week with our founders. We're going to talk about everything that's happened last week with ourselves. And we will have a guest that's going to pop in and is going to talk about branding and all things growth. So let's have a look back to what's happening right now within founders and like some of the main topics that we're seeing founders breaking ahead. And I want to focus today very much on the outreach that's happening and how I'm seeing some founders breaking through and other founders that are having real difficulty being able to break through. So, like, for example, if I talk to Replanet, one of our companies today, one of the most amazing things that Replanet are doing is that they're able to build out incredible scale by measuring everything. And I know I talk about this a lot. I know it seems to be a fixation for me, but remember, startup is just math. It's nothing else, right? You work out how much revenue you need to be able to drive forward, that you need to be able to grow. And then you take that revenue and then you work it back to the activities required to be able to break through. Now, in the case of founders, you know that the activity required is going to be the amount of outreach that you do. If you decide that LinkedIn is the way to go forward, if you decide that email is the way to go forward, whatever it is, all of those things will give you an ability to be able to break through yourselves. But you have to work your way backwards, right? So it starts at the very end. How much revenue are you trying to get? How is that revenue being used? How soon do you need that revenue? And then how do you back it into a place where you can actually be successful with the activities you require today? We were planning, it was really interesting. I looked at they literally started 4 or 5 months ago. Expert Dojo put an investment into them back in those days. They spent the first month working desperately on the product to be able to break the product through. Then they knew that the brand wasn't what was needed for them to get through. So they moved so fast from getting the product right to making sure that they had the brand and the messaging in a really good place. Now, then once you get to that point, you start with the product, you see how your customers are engaging with it. You then move to the messaging and you see, do you have good enough messaging to be successful? Then you move to the beautiful area. And the beautiful area is, do I smash in the front door or do I come in a side window? Or do I get rocket fuel and come in the chimney? Like, which way do I go, right? Going in the front door, you're doing your LinkedIn outreach, you're doing your email outreach, you're doing your cold calling, you're doing your texting. Maybe you are doing some content marketing as well, and you're pushing the content marketing out on different areas of social, but you've worked everything down to a fine science. And even though you're smashing through on the front door, the basis that you're smashing through is entirely to make sure that you can hit the numbers you're going to hit. And this stuff is like super important for you to hit 2025. Everything in 2025 is going to be based on what you start preparing at the beginning of 2025. And so in Replanet's case, they were immediately saying, great, we know we need 15 appointments and we need 15 appointments so we can close 3 or 4 deals. And we need 3 or 4 deals so we can get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in revenue, whatever that revenue number is, to be able to grow at your 200% plus growth year on year. Remember, that's the magic number for everything. The 200% is everything you need. Without the 200%, you're absolutely doomed. You're not going to be able to do it because VCs won't see that you're growing fast enough. So growth, 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 growth. But in their case, they're like, okay, we're going to hit LinkedIn. How do they hit LinkedIn? Well, they reached out to folks like me who are already investors in them. And they said, Brian, you're connected to that person. Make sure that you do a connection with that. You can connect us with them so that we can build a relationship with that person. Brian, you're connected with that person. Brian, you're connected with this person. And what they did was they made sure that they had all of these relationships being built in a very clean, easy way. Now, in addition to that, they're then working LinkedIn. They're working a number of other areas as well. And so it's all about building that out yourself. So how many of you are doing that? How many of you are actually breaking down your sales for 2025 in a way where you say, I know what my 200% growth looks like next year. And by the way, the 200% growth is only based on the principle that you have got $30,000 a month in revenue. If you don't have 2,000 that amount in revenue, then you're doomed. So I want to make sure that you all have that lined up for yourself before you even start. The same as for all of our companies. This is what we're doing with every one of our companies next year. Hello, you.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank
Good.
you.
I like I like it. Kishley let you in. That's so nice. This is
Yes.
good. And you know what we're talking about today? We're talking about growth.
Yeah.
We like growth a lot. And so, what I would love to do, if I can, Kate, is can you maybe share a little bit with everybody about yourself? I know you, and we go back, and you've been working with startups for years, but share a little bit about yourself. Where I've started here is on you build out your lovable product, you get your product going really well, then you start to build out your brand, and you get your messaging right, and you make sure that's okay. And then when you do that, you either smash through the front door of your customers by doing your LinkedIn outreach and your email and your calls and everything else, or you make yourself famous, which is okay. You can do that too. That just gives you a little bit of a boost. Maybe you write a book. Maybe you get yourself on podcasts. Maybe you go on conferences and you go on tour. Or you build incredible partnerships to go forward. So everybody needs to plan on that this year. But share a little bit about your wonderfulness. And then let's dig into that and see if we can give folks some really nice tips about how they can start off the week differently and be able to break through.
Yeah, I love that. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a really exciting time because at the end of the year, I always say everyone starts slowing down because of the holidays and everything. But I feel like this is a perfect time to just think about your reflection of your own personal growth and your personal brand and how far you came this year, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and where you want to go for the next year. Because this is a season of reflection. But I think that when everyone slows down, it's a really big opportunity to speed up in the sense of get yourself centered and get yourself grounded. So, what I do is I work with people on figuring out who they are, what their identity is, who they're wanting to step into in a very authentic way, and translating that online through aesthetics. So, from what you wear in your wardrobe, how you present yourself, how you show up, all the way to your website and how people perceive you based on what you're putting out there in your digital presence as well. Because no matter where someone meets us, like we could be on vacation sitting at the bar in Cabo and just happen to meet someone, or we could be at a dinner in LA and you end up seeing your friend, they're with someone, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to introduce you to this person. Boom, there's your first impression. So it's always about being really authentic in who you are and making sure that every single touch point someone has with you, from how you present yourself and what you wear to your digital presence, is all cohesive and congruent. Because especially if you're going into pitch meetings too, you have to reflect your authenticity and people need to feel who you are. And that's the vibe, right? Like people are going to buy into your company because they first buy into you. So that's my role, is making sure that that's authentic and cohesive.
I love that. And personal brand, with that piece where you get your product right, you know you have something for the market, then that's followed by brand. And what you point out really well here is that you have a personal brand and you have a business brand, right? The business brand is, of course, what people think about your business, whether you want them to or not. Your personal brand is what they think of you. And as the CEO and the founder of your company, there are only two types of people. There's the types of people who realize that they have a personal brand, and the types of people who don't realize that they have a personal brand, but both have a personal brand. People will judge who you are and what you're capable of at the very beginning. And it's a funny thing. At the start, your personal brand, I think as your company becomes huge, with the exception of like Richard Branson's and Gary Vaynerchuk, the business brand takes priority over the personal brand. But at the beginning, for a pre-seed and seed company, your personal brand is everything.
Yeah, of course, because if people don't connect with you, they can't buy into your vision. And those are the things I've actually had a conversation with a couple of my founders the past week too, is like your clarity of the vision of the company really stems a lot from your vision as a person, and they are so intertwined together. And I know a lot of people, like you mentioned, where you're like, I have a company brand and obviously the personal brand, but how do those two harmonize? And it's like, just look at Apple. You still feel Steve Jobs' like core values, his essence within the company. So it all starts from the founder and your vibe and your energy and what you put into it. And then of course, as you grow and evolve, the company will kind of take on its own personality. However, it all starts with the founder.
And if there's investment, then it's even more so. And so
Mhm.
every single thing you do, like everything, this is what I really like, is that everything has ripples. They're all little pebbles that you're throwing in the water, and each one of them like have reverberations, and it affects everything that you do. It might be that you go out one evening, but you're going out to a meetup, but you're wearing khakis and shorts and a pair of sandals, and it's okay, but it's not okay because somebody has just judged you. And if that's outside the
Mhm.
brand of the persona that you're building, that is creating a company that is raising a million. And by the way, look, we're talking about venture backable startups here. We're kind of talking about everybody, but we're especially talking about venture backable startups here. You're raising tens of millions of dollars. And that means your personal persona has to represent the type of person that would be given tens of millions of dollars,
Mhm.
right? Do you have levels that you look at? You say, well, actually, built within the persona, there's trust. And built within the persona, there's aggression. And built within the persona, there's being able to execute. Like, I know myself as an investor going through the years of like all of the areas where I'm like, oh boy, like, I know next time I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to invest in that person again. I'm not going to like do that same rodeo again. And so I'm starting to think there's like a pecking order of really important things that you need to have within that persona to build up your opportunities, not just with investors. We start with investors, but then I would love to go on to customers as well and see if that's different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing too is making sure people don't feel like they have to create this PR persona, because that's where I feel a lot of people have this disconnect of like, oh, my product is the most important thing. I am not. I don't need to dress a certain way. This is very superficial. Like, there's a lot of that type of thought process I've run into with founders because their product is the most important thing. But yes and no. I think that you first do have to sell yourself, but you do have to also look at it as it's not a PR image that you're creating. It's the rooted in authenticity. So for example, the main thing I hear from especially my male founders that I work with is like, well, do I have to wear a suit? I don't want to wear a suit. That's not me. And it's like, well, okay, cool. It might not be you, but it's about who are you authentically? Who is your identity? What makes you feel the most like you? And then let's like dial it up. You want to present your most elevated self while still feeling really authentic. So, for example, if a suit isn't your vibe, then we're not going to put you in that, because then your energy is not going to match. You walk in the room and people are going to feel this tension and this disconnect, and they don't quite realize what it is. But if the founder's standing there trying to present and they don't feel comfortable in who they are, then that is the biggest thing where like you have to match the energy with how you present yourself. And to your point, like there are different, we do go through of like, okay, here's what makes you you. These are the points, these are the stories and the vibes that we want people to connect with you on. How do you translate that aesthetically? So yes, in what you wear, like what you're talking about, having a little bit of like an aggressive side, not in a negative way, but I think you do have to have that energy coming into certain meetings. So in order to feel this way, to not only tell the story and have other people receive that, you have to feel that energy as well. So, what do you need to do in terms of how you present yourself, in terms of how your website is, how your social media is? Because all these things go into telling the story. Are those things cohesive? So, what you're saying is, having that a little bit of that aggressive energy that people can feel, because that is a good thing. So, how do we showcase that through your presence?
I think it's super interesting. Look, I am a huge fan of authenticity. Like, I think everything I've done in the dojo, I've tried to do through authenticity from the beginning. But I also feel that let me do the comparison to relationships, because
Mhm.
this actually is a great conversation, right? So many times two folks meet each other and one party is not at that stage in their life where they are prepared to take on the new responsibilities that will come with a long-term relationship, whether they be babies, whether it be a mortgage, or whether it just be not being an idiot, right? But if they avoid that relationship because they are authentically not in that place yet, then they lose out on an amazing relationship. And I think back to myself even 10, 15 years ago. Look, I was an enthusiastic nice guy. Everybody's wonderful, everybody's great, I want to save the world. That was my authentic character because I was stupid, right? That's not the reality of what's going to make me successful. The reality of what's going to make me feel successful is to realize that everybody is not the same. There are plenty of founders out there who have no fucking idea how to execute. The only thing that they're good at, like really good at, that will consistently do every single day is lose people's money. And they can be as authentic as they want, but they are useless for purpose for somebody to get a return on investment. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean, because a lot of us are in. I was that guy 10, 15 years ago. Like, and that's okay. But sometimes you have to lean into a thing that is not you yet, but you have to become that
Yes.
person, because the only thing you're going to do otherwise is you're just going to be a fool wasting people's time and wasting people's money, but you're an authentic fool, right? And so I kind of feel, I don't know, through my own life's journey, that I'm not false today. I'm probably more honest than I was 10, 15 years ago. 10, 15 years ago, I was an idiot who would never have been able to do the stuff that I can do today if I had stayed in that authentic suit, not in the suit, but that authentic body.
Oh yeah, and I love that you bring that up because that's where this next level self-concept comes in, right? So you're not only just being authentic to where you're at right now, because clearly that's not the person you need to be in order to get to where you want to be. So it's a combination of, yes, authenticity, but moving into who are you wanting to be and who do you have to become in order to achieve whatever result. And that's where that clarity comes in, of having this clarity and awareness. Where do I want to go? Who are the type of people I want to work with? What are the investors that I want to take on? And you have to become that person. And I think, just from a sake of, you have to have the clarity of who you want to become. But then I feel like fashion is the easiest tool immediately to see a result, because you
Yeah.
can immediately figure out who do you want to be and then how is that person dressing. And I know it sounds really simple, because to be honest it is, but it's the fastest way that you can see an immediate result into your energy. Because we've all had that moment where you put on something, you put on an outfit and you look in the mirror and you're like, I look amazing, this looks like, you feel so much more confident, your shoulders are back, all the things, right? But that's like the tip of the iceberg. So it's the easiest thing to then start leaning into that. But to your point, you can't just, you have to become a different person to be able to achieve the thing that you actually want to do.
I like that. I was just smiling because it's been so long since I've looked in the mirror and thought I look amazing. I remember though, it was so nice. Just for that
But like
brief
you
moment.
can you can have those so often, and I think
Yeah.
that it's just,
No, I'm
that's the
joking.
intentionality.
You're totally right. You're totally right. But I also think this is wonderful timing for this, because, like, all of us think we're awesome. All of us think we're going to start $1 billion company. All of us think that we're going to change the world. But the reality is, we don't have the chops to be able to take it all the way. The people who are great creatives are not great at business development. The people who are great at business development are not great at building organizations and companies. It's just there's very few people in the world, 0.0000001%, that are actually able to do all those things and take a company from zero to multi-billion within like a 5-10 year period. So we have to evolve. All of us, we have to
Mhm.
evolve. We have to learn. We have to get better. And like, the end of the year is the best time. I love this time because everybody else is sleeping and getting fat and drinking
Mhm.
beer. Like, this is your time to say 2025 is coming. It's like this line in the sand between not having quite achieved what we want to achieve and being able to take over the entire world. Like, it's right
Yeah.
there on January 1. So we get to look and say, okay, there are probably skills that we need to learn. There are things that we need to do. There are employees that we need to shed. There are new people that we need to bring on. There is a different way to look at things to become the authentic self that can be successful. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that authentic self is not the person that you think it is, but it's okay. This is the time for huge self-reflection, because I agree with you. At the beginning, actually, your personal brand is your business brand. It's exactly the same thing. Like, there is no large groups of people that put together this wonderful brand for your company. There's like you and your mom and your friend and maybe your wife, your husband. Like, that's it. So the brand is an extension of the problem that you saw personally in this business. And so one will become the other. So what kind of tips do you give folks for how they should lean into this and just do a really good job on becoming that incredibly successful, authentic, future authentic, no, it's self-authentic, self-aware, authentic person who's going to be successful in 2025?
I always say the number one thing is to figure out your style first. And I don't necessarily mean only fashion. It's just figure out who you are, what your identity is, who you want to show up as. Do a brain dump of like your self-concept. Just kind of brain dump, be like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? What are goals that I'm wanting to achieve? What comes to mind? Because the biggest thing is to become that person, you have to be extremely self-aware, and you have to allow yourself to just free. I usually like to recommend free writing. I think it's really important where, you know, from one sentence to the next, it doesn't even make sense, and that's okay. You just have to get it out, because so much of it we're consumed with all the other content and all the things that we have to do, that you just kind of have to empty your brain out. And what I have found to be really important is that allows you to start figuring out and getting in tune with yourself, because everyone has that ability. So you first have to understand who you are and what your style is, and what's your style of doing everything, not just fashion. Like, how do you want to lead a team? How do you want to present yourself? What kind of events are you wanting to go to? What do you feel most drawn to? Because when you understand yourself, you can listen to your energy and what you're drawn to, what feels expansive, what feels like very contracted. So listening to your energy, I think, is the number one thing of, you know, figuring out your style, who you are, how you want to present yourself to the world, and who you want to step into. Because that is what's going to lead all of your business decisions. If you don't know who you are, then you can't trust yourself. And if you don't understand how to understand your own energy of, okay, does this event, should I go to this event? Okay, well, does it feel really expansive, or does it feel like I should go? Even just that really small distinction, you'll be able to lead with, you'll be able to lead with your own energy, and being able to know like what is for you and what's not. And that's always where I start, because then all of your business decisions based on, what aesthetic should I use? How should my website look? What does the product need to do? How do I need to position this? Who do I need to talk to? All that stems from knowing yourself and knowing how to read yourself, and then knowing who you're wanting to step into.
How should people do that? Because it's really hard. Like, how do they do? Like, how do people feed on their own energy, or even listen to their own energy? Is it just a question? Like, I spend these couple of weeks over in Ireland. I really like the Christmas period over here, and because it's cold, I can't even describe why. It's just cold, right? But because it's cold, there's like rocks down the road, and there's ocean, and the ocean is angry, and it's cold, and I love that. I actually love it, because when I sit there, it's my way of being able to really feed on the energy which I grew up with, and which is kind of, I suppose, probably more of me than I even realize. But how does like a normal entrepreneur do it? They're dealing with their 400 emails a day, their texts, they got problems everywhere, they're running out of money, they're trying to fundraise, they're getting left down, left, right, and center. Like, how do you stop? And what exercises can you do to prepare for 2025 so you can come in your absolute beast mode?
Okay, so there's two things I'll recommend. The first one, when it comes to just getting centered with yourself and understanding who you are, it sounds really simple, because it is, but again, you have to connect back to yourself. And that is, to me, I feel like free writing. So what I've been doing is my alarm goes off at 5:35 in the morning. I pop 100 milligrams of caffeine pill, and I'm immediately like, my brain is on. I go into my office, and from 5:45 to 7, I am literally in front of my computer just free writing, because this allows me to get
Wow.
everything out. And I'm a mom of two. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old. And so at 7 o'clock, we have a
Whoa.
thing where it's like, 7 is I have to be a mom. So before that, sometimes they'll come in my office and see me, but it's like, that's why I've determined like I can't work, because if I know my own energy and if I get interrupted in a flow state, I just get annoyed. So I'm like, nope, we're going to use this time to center myself. We're going to get everything out. And this could be, I'm writing about work. I have this meeting. I don't know what to do. Like, and a lot of this too is, for me, it's very like prayer and connecting with God. And that's something where I'm like, please, like, giving guidance and kind of receiving a lot of guidance and things like that. And I can't tell you how beneficial that hour to hour 15 has been. And it sounds so simple, because I know a lot of times with morning routines with entrepreneurs, it's like, you got to get sunlight, you got to get this, you got to get that. And it's like, no, just get some water, go in your office and just free write. And it could be something of just a brain dump. I don't even know what's happening today. I had this meeting. I don't know what to say. I'm really stressed out. I have this to do and this to do and this to do. Oh, and I have to walk my dog and I have to do this. From one sentence to the next, it doesn't even make sense a lot of times, but that's the point. So that I have had so many like revelations with connecting the dots that I was not expecting. And it's just allowed me to get everything out of my head to feel more centered. So then I do feel my own energy. I am able to know, like, what do I need to do today? What is the most important thing I need to focus on? And after you've done that, like sometimes I'm at like 7 or 8 pages on Google Doc, because it's just flowing. My mind goes so fast. But that would be very simple, but start there, because you'll start getting centered and aligned with yourself. And don't judge anything. Don't try to make any sense of what's happening. Just let it be. And I know that that can be really hard for us entrepreneurs. The second thing I would say is understanding your style. So this is more from the aesthetic point of view, because I know that you get confident from, I say it's like confidence from the outside in. So figuring out who you are and how you want to show up. So the exercise I always tell my clients when they first start working with me is, well, first of all, do a social detox, get off of social for like 24 hours to kind of get rid of all of the things. Because a lot of times we're consuming so much information. Example for fashion, we're like, oh, I like this outfit, blah, 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 but that might not be you. So get off of social, kind of do a decompress, and then open up Pinterest, create a board, and just go down the rabbit hole. So what I mean by that is like, go on your home screen and just pin anything that makes you feel something. Again, don't judge it. Could be, patterns or clothing or quotes or colors or vacation spots, cocktails, food, whatever. Like, don't judge it. Just take about 45 minutes to an hour. And I know that might sound a long time, but it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get in a flow state. So do that, put it in that board, and then go away. Next day, come back, open up the board, look at everything again in that board, and then delete anything that you no longer resonate with. Because sometimes you can be in the moment and it's cool, but then you look back and like, doesn't exactly do much for me. Once you do that, then you can look at it and start spotting themes. And I promise you, you will find them. Even the most not creative person will be able to start seeing that. So for example, are you seeing certain colors that you're drawn to, certain styles? Are you looking at different quotes that are all kind of have the same theme? Or, you see lots of stairs or very expansive fields or expansive skies or whatever this is. It's going to start informing you on what you are drawn to. What is your innate style? And then that's where my gift is being able to translate that and stuff, but that will get people started to start feeling more connected to themselves. So those are the two main exercises, and they're simple because they work.
Yeah, I love both of those actually. I think they're really strong. I actually even think of my own routine, and I just wake up in the morning and I just get stuck into battle. And even though it feels like it's the best use of time, it's actually not. Because the problem is you're Like you're immediately just going out there and wielding some sword from 5 in the morning, and it's okay. Like you may have wielded your sword very well, but then by the time you just get to the next day, you're just wielding a sword again, and the next day, and you're
Yeah.
wielding a sword, and at the end, if you just had stepped back, or if I had stepped back and maybe just thought to myself, maybe there are better weapons of choice that could be used in this particular battle against time that we all have with startups. So I really like that.
Mhm.
What do you also think about, just going back to like our first comment around, rather than leaning into the person that you are, leaning into the
Mhm.
person that you will become and that you need to
Yeah.
become to be successful in your startup. So maybe you put on a couple of pounds, but maybe that's actually a problem because you're more tired at 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. And like you want to be Djokovic, but Djokovic doesn't sit on the couch eating Doritos all day. And
Right.
so maybe you know that you need to get better sleep at night, but you don't have enough sleep at night. Maybe you know that you need to dress better, you need to look better, you need to speak on better stages. Maybe you need to
Mhm.
work better, maybe you need clarity of brain. And so actually we have like a week and a half now before we get to this magic period where the 1st of January comes. And what we don't want to do is what everybody does with weight loss. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose weight. No, you're not. It's going to stop in like a month or 2 months time. Like, how
Mhm.
do you look forward to the type of person that you need to be, which for everybody listening is the type of business that you need to have, which is the type
Mhm.
of results that you need to achieve? Like, how do you look forward to where that goes to, visualize what it looks like, and work your way backwards with the best possibility of success?
I think accountability is the biggest thing that's been helpful for me. So, for example, I've always been I've always loved working out. I used to run track. Like that's always been a part of who I am. However, I still get stuck in a rut sometimes, right? Like there's so much to go, there's so much going on. I'm a mom of two. I'm with them all day. I'm running a business. I'm also a wife. I have to do housewives shit, like all this stuff, right? But usually like I get put on the back burner and I started noticing my mental state just tank. And a lot of it, like what you're saying is I love working. I love what I do. I want to be doing it at all times. And so that was my thought process of waking up in the morning and I'm just going to start working. Also, I would be telling myself this story, and I'm still working through this of like, I don't have enough time. And that's something that I've really been practicing of I have enough time to do what I'm needing to do right now. And it first starts with taking care of myself. And I know that sounds really cliche, but that has been something I've been working on really consistently over the last quarter. And I know that sounds so small, but I hired a personal trainer and I do it virtually with her. And I have a gym in our garage. So I've been able to cut down on my time and efficiency. So all I have to do is go downstairs, I work out, and then I'm done. Or I've learned now that I can work out while my kids are just like playing in the yard, and that's fine. I've learned how to do that. But that is something where I have, especially as entrepreneurs, I think that we do have this, most of us have this like energy about us where like we have somewhat of an ego, we have so much pride and confidence. So like that to me helped me be like, okay, I have to get my workouts in because I have too much pride to tell my trainer that I didn't have time to get a workout in. So like even though like I've always been more prone to working out and to being healthy and to eating well and all the things, like I still need that accountability. And so I've learned, so I was actually sick the past like week, and for like a week and a half, I couldn't wake up early and do my morning pages. I just needed the extra sleep and whatever. And I could tell, and I couldn't work out either. My everything just tanked. And so, like, my mental state and whatever. And the first day that I was able to wake up early, do my morning pages, and then literally the first set of the first workout, I immediately was like, why am I stressing about that? Like, I can't control that. So, I know that like the beginning of the year, like you have all these resolutions and things like that. But I think the biggest way to like become the person that you want is to just understand that you cannot be a great business leader if your health is shit. So you have to take that on and be like, I know it sounds counterintuitive that like, shouldn't your time be spent on building your business versus working out or spending an hour centering yourself in the morning? But like, it seems backwards, but I've been able to go a lot farther just from that. And it did start with having accountability, because I know that I can't go to her and be like, I didn't have time.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're not just saying, well, visualize what it's going to look like in the future. It's not, you have to have accountability and you have to
Yeah.
have an end point. And look, I said Djokovic, like I love my tennis. So we can do
Mhm.
Alcaraz, we can do Djokovic, we can do Nadal. If it was somebody else, you can do other folks as well. But like all of those people have one thing in common. They train to be champions. What do
Yeah.
you think about that?
I mean, it's true. Like it's the discipline, right? Like you don't just, that's something that I see a lot of, especially in the online space. And I used to work with primarily like speakers, coaches, consultants, like that realm. And so much of it, don't get me wrong, visualization is great. However, I think that there's this whole thing of like, put it on your vision board and visualize it every day and it'll happen. But there's not a lot of action that comes with it. And that comes from discipline. Like there's these questions of how do I stay motivated? And I was like, you stay motivated because you are like, not everyone is motivated all the time. Like you have to have discipline and you have to put things in place to make you disciplined. And that to me is the accountability of like a personal trainer. And then once you start like committing to yourself that I'm going to take care of me, you do like things do just like chemically change in your brain to make you want to stay more consistent. And because you feel how strong you are, if you've ever like worked out consistently and like even just like one work, like you feel so strong, which means you operate as a better leader just strictly because of how you're feeling. And so I think
And by
again,
the
it just
way,
comes down to,
hey, it's the same for doing yoga. It's the same for eating
yeah,
well. It's the same for sleeping well. It's the same for drinking water. You want to
yeah.
be a world class athlete, you got to train like a world class athlete. Like that's it. Even what
Yeah.
Divya said there, which is like, how do you effectively balance learning and sharing knowledge simultaneously? You have to learn because you're building something that's never existed before. You got to learn stuff
Hmm.
and know stuff, or you can't do it. You have to do, or you don't get customers to make money to quantify that you're actually achieving something. And you have to be in the best physical shape of your life, or you will never make it through. You don't have a
Hmm.
choice, right? You get to build up the hours, but what other things would you suggest would be good ideas to help make that a reality? Because it is impossible.
Hmm. So I think, well, one thing I would say to her question too is that like documenting the journey is really important as well. I think that the landscape of how our businesses are these days is people are really wanting to know who's behind the company. They want to know who the founder is. And so I think that there's this really magical space of being able to showcase that you are learning and you are growing and you are evolving to become a better person and to become a better founder and a better leader for that company. And you can document that journey, which is simultaneously going to build your brand. And when you're saying like, hey, I just took this course and this is what I learned and whatever, and like you could take a picture of like going to this yoga class and be like, this is a way that I work to center myself. People want to feel connected to the founder, and they're going to end up loving your business more when they do feel that connection and that passion. So I think documenting your journey is big. The other thing to answer your question, I think is a really easy thing is like, you said when we first started this question of, well, people are like, oh, I put on extra weight and I don't feel good and look good and things like that. This is, especially from my stylist days, like this is something that I hear all the time is, well, I'm going to wait to look good or be this person until X. I need to lose the weight first before I dress the part that I know that I want to dress like. Like those limiting mindsets are only going to set you back. Like you can always sell them, buy the clothes, sell them on Poshmark when you lose the weight, whatever, like there are ways, or just like look at it as an investment in yourself and your energy to become the best version of yourself now and not waiting.
I love that. It's true. Just do it. Look, so here's the
Mm-hmm.
conclusion from this entire episode. And it's a big one because all founders out there, you all know you've got like a restart. The restart is the beginning of 2025. We're back in the fight again. We know we can build great companies. There's actually more enthusiasm in the economy than there's been in a long time. There's a hope that we're going to have IPOs and acquisitions and all kinds of great things, but they all require one thing. They require you to be at your very best, the best you in 12 months' time that you can be, starting from today and going to that point. If you are not accountable, to Kate's point, between now and then for the things you need to do on all of the areas to have you in your peak performance to achieve those numbers, then I'm sorry, you didn't want this bad enough.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really care what happened. You didn't want this bad enough because you know what needs to be done. You know the work that needs to be put in. You just have to plan it out properly. And this is your time to be really, really honest with yourself. And whether you're like me and you can sit in front of the crashing ocean, smashing on the rocks, having it feel like my everyday, or whether you're on a beach somewhere and watching a serene sunset as it's coming in and you're thinking, wow, this is how I'm going to go. You have to give yourself the time to actually plan out what that looks like. And so if you're going to like break it into a little summary and you're saying, okay, this is it, last minute or two, and then I want to make sure everybody gets your details as well. But like, this is, you have a week or so until the end of the year. This is what you should do this week. This is what you should plan out. This is how you plan to be the absolute most kick ass. I was, sorry, before I even say this, I've just elevated personal brand all the way up to the top. I always had messaging as the very top thing because I think it's terribly important. I think mediocre product with amazing messaging eats incredible product with terrible messaging every single day. And then around that, I would have, yeah, you got to outreach, you got to be an animal, you got to be a beast, you got to be calling every day, you got to work your ass off. There's no excuse, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that all of this stuff, it comes from us, right? None of it existed without us. And that means that our personal brand is actually building absolutely everything in this unicorn that is being built. And if that's the case, why is it the thing that we take care of the least? So I want to just really reinforce everything that Kate's saying here. This is your time to create a year where at the end of this year, you are a shadow of what you were at the beginning of this year. And not because you got lucky, and definitely not because you got worse. You got way better, but only because you knew what you needed to become the absolute you that needed to exist to achieve the results you needed to achieve. So on that point, Kate, what the hell do they need to do starting from tomorrow to make sure that they don't fuck it up?
I love this. So again, it goes back to what I was saying. It's a lot simpler than people make it out to be. And what you said is it's the thing that gets on the back burner because it's the easiest thing to ignore because it's the hardest thing to do because it's a simple task, yet it requires you to sit with yourself and actually have that awareness and clarity and get really, really honest with yourself. And so I really believe that everyone already knows what to do. You have it inside of you. You have that intuition. Every single person does. You just have to get quiet enough to hear it. And that's where I think that these morning pages are one of the most important things that you can do because it forces you to get centered. And just try it for 3 days. I bet after the first day you're going to know what I'm talking about, but just 3 or 4 days, try it and just challenge yourself to do it and see how you feel. Literally wake up and the first thing that you do is you spend time with yourself and you just write and get it out there because with the intention as well to, remove all the shit that's in your brain that you can't stop thinking about. That could be business, that could be family, whatever. And then start thinking about who do I want to be? Who needs to be the person to achieve the goal? Or maybe you need to work a little bit like in reverse where it's like, what are the goals that you want to achieve? Because a lot of us are just like very business first with everything, which I am too. So maybe it's like, what are my goals? And then kind of work backwards, be like, who is the type of person that it takes to achieve that and then free write because I do really believe we all know. So that's how I would spend the rest of like challenge yourself the rest of the year. What is it, 10 days or whatever, to just sit there and just like free write and get centered with yourself. And then put those things in place. Like now that you have these, like, okay, I need to be focusing on my health. Don't start working out like 6 days a week if you don't work out. Like try 3. And then also, what do you need to do in order to make yourself disciplined? go get a trainer. Maybe it's like my trainer's virtual. So like I work with her virtually, which is amazing for me. But maybe you need something in person to actually like get you out. Like know yourself, know your schedule, know how you operate, and actually look at the reality of your life too. Like, do you have kids? When are you with them? Can you actually do that morning? Like, do you only need like, do you only have 20 minutes in the morning to do this? Don't push yourself to an hour. So there has to be some reality with like your schedule, but then also knowing like, what are you needing to do the bare minimum of get enough sleep at night and center yourself in the morning and work out and eat healthier. Those are the things that will just change the trajectory of your life, and you'll start seeing it's the simple things that actually like make a huge difference. So put those triggers in there that make you stay disciplined to that, and I would just start small and just start with that.
Well done. I love that. And Kushi, same applies to you. You're asking about being in law school and building a personal brand. It's all the same. I love that. Get yourself centered, plan out what the version of yourself that you want to be, stay accountable to the plans that you put across the entire page, and then just be it and do it. If this was in the normal world, I'd say everybody has an excuse. Don't worry, everybody messes up their lives. It's part of the job. In entrepreneurship, you don't get that option. You don't have that luxury. You made a selfish choice. Your selfish choice was to build something almost impossible with a reverence to all of the people around you who love you. You are a selfish person, but in a very beautiful way, as am I, right? But if we're going to do that, don't half-ass it. Don't be lazy. Like, be accountable, and then you get to change the world. I love this. Kate, how can people contact you? As I said, I love you've actually recentered me today. You've taken me away from like all of the usual garbage to a place of, yeah, sure, we got to lead it through intentionality, and that only becomes through accountability. And that means like centering myself now. So for other folks who want to get a little bit more of Kate, how do they do it?
Yeah, there's one more thing I would just add is making sure that once you do that, going into actually building out your personal brand is looking at every single touch point. Now, this is more of like the tangible, like tactical things, but like go into doing an audit of every single touch point that someone has with you, your digital presence, obviously your wardrobe, but like where do you show up? Google, PR, website, social, like all the things, and make sure that it reflects who you want to be seen as. You have to control the narrative. You can't control what people think of you, but you can control the information they have to form their opinion. So making sure that each touch point reflects who you are and who you want them to see you as, and that it's all cohesive and congruent. So those are, making sure that all the aesthetics match and kind of come together. But yeah, so you can find me just kateobert.com, and then LinkedIn, you have my information here. LinkedIn and Instagram are usually where I hang out. So yeah, I would love to connect with everyone.
I love it, Kate. Thank you very much. Great show. Personal branding. I love it. Go out there, everybody, and become the best version of you. And thank you, Kate. We'll be back
Thank you
again. Kate will be somewhere with some expert dojo cohort company desperately looking to build out a unicorn brand. I appreciate you, Kate. Thanks a lot.
That's a wrap. Thank you.